Taylor Swift's wedding may have been private, but the conversation around it certainly wasn't. It dominated headlines around the world, reminding us how invested we become in the lives of people we've never actually met. But why? I'm Antoinette, this is Culture Alchemy, and today I'm joined by my plus one, comedian and creator Rosie Tran, to unpack our fascination with celebrity weddings, social media, and what the creator economy means for the future of entertainment. And Rosie is a New Orleans-born, LA-based comedian whose career has included appearances on Last Comic Standing and Netflix is a Joke. She's also the creator and host of Rosie Tran Presents, a comedy showcase streaming on Amazon. Rosie, welcome to Culture Alchemy.
Yay, I'm so excited to be here, Antoinette, and I'm so excited to talk about such a fun topic.
Right? You know, I think this is the gift that keeps on giving with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. So much content around everything they do. And I feel like they just offered up on a silver platter because this is the wedding of, definitely of the summer. Maybe it's hyperbole to say of the year, but I think there are some people who have been watching this as if it's a royal wedding. So LA must have been very empty actually this weekend while everyone was basically in New York City for this wedding. It was a who's who, thousands of people. But I'd love to just get your thoughts on the wedding in general. So why do you think people were so fascinated by it?
I think people are fascinated by Taylor's wedding for a couple of reasons. First of all, she has her own economy around her. You know, I personally know people in the hospitality industry, for example, in New Orleans, which is the main tourism and hospitality is the main industry where I'm from in New Orleans. And when she came and had her tour there, her Eras tour there, you know, it was akin to creating as much income as a second Mardi Gras. So yeah, it was wow. Crazy. So she definitely has a sphere around her of entertainment. And I think that, you know, the US doesn't have a royal family. We don't really have, you know, the way the UK has, you know, the royal family. And so celebrities are kind of, you know, our royal family in the US and around the world. And I think that, you know, even though a lot of people criticize the royals, there is a place for them in a way, because I think people are attracted to this idea of royalty, of elitism that we kind of look up to in a fun way. Obviously, there is a lot of political divisiveness around the wealthy, but I think celebrities offer a little bit more fun to it versus like a political figure like Elon Musk or a political figure that might be divisive, right? So it's a little bit of fun fantasy where we kind of get what are the number one shows on Netflix? Like Bridgerton, right? These fun shows where people are kind of escaping into a fantasy world. So, you know, Game of Thrones is a big one on HBO. So we really love this idea of this fantasy world. And even if we have a very full life, you know, it's not just an escape, you know, if you live a miserable life, but even if you have a very full life with kids and family and you know, boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, and whatever, it's just a fun escape. And so I think that is why we're so obsessed with these kind of celebrities in a way, because it's a way for us to escape, even if we have a great life, kind of like the daily grudgery and drudgery, and be like, okay, that would be kind of fun if I was at her wedding, and what would I wear, and you know, it's things like that.
Yes, you're so right. I find myself there's so much. So thank you for that, because there's so many threads I want to pull on that. I totally agree with you on the celebrity being the royalty. Certainly for us in North America, I would say, and I will even take it a step further, because I think Taylor, you mentioned that she is an economy of her own. And I think she's also, oddly, I was trying to think about Taylor's relationship with her, you know, Swifties. She's got this really special relationship. And even though most celebrities do have these relationships, these like parasocial relationships are on steroids with her, because she does really bring in her fan base in a way that is very intimate. She offers all these opportunities to be part of everything she's doing. Like, she documents everything. She's very strategic about how she puts things out. But I have a feeling like her life is very curated for our consumption. And so one thing I thought was really interesting is that she chose probably one of the most public places ever. It was the most lavish way to do the wedding, but also very private. So she made sure that it was private, yet it was also this I mean, it couldn't be a more like grandiose event to like rent out Madison Square
I mean,
Garden.
Madison Square Garden is literally a performance venue. So
Right.
I don't know where else you could, it wasn't a private, event like on an island or something. It was definitely in New York, the center of, finance, the center of entertainment in a way. I would
Yeah.
you would argue maybe sometimes more so than Los Angeles because a lot of celebrities live in New York and things like that. And I think that she's very relatable. I mean, I know she's a beautiful woman, but she's not um like unattainably beautiful in a way. I know that I don't want to just have the Swifties yelling at me, but
Totally.
she doesn't have a goddess vibe. She kind of has a girl next door vibe, and all of her music is about heartbreak. And as a woman, I'm married, but as a woman who's dated in America, in the modern century, who hasn't had a heartbreak or two that is totally you just want to put on Taylor Swift and cry. And so to see her have so many public heartbreaks and finally find her quote unquote Prince Charming, I think there is an aspect of royalty to it. It's like you're rooting for your girlfriend, like, oh, she finally found the one, and I think that's very relatable because she has had, she's beautiful, she's wealthy, and she has struggled with romance. And I think that's something that's very relatable to every woman and that portrays the message, the kind of like you go girl message of like, hey, it's not me, it's him, because of Taylor Swift, who's beautiful, successful, and wealthy, has had problems in relationships, then I feel better about myself, that, my value isn't dependent on kind of external validation from a guy who doesn't have his stuff together,
Exactly. Exactly. I totally see what you're saying about people can relate to the dating woes, right? Like the
Yeah.
dumpster fire that is modern dating right now. So anytime somebody does actually find their person, it kind of validates this whole fairy tale as well that we have in our mind about like Taylor Swift represents exactly what you said. She struggled. We've seen her struggle. She's led us into all of the struggles. And then, oh my gosh, there comes Travis. Oh, is he Endgame? Oh, maybe he is. Is this the one? So like, it's like we're watching this story for 2 decades play out with this woman. She's growing in front of our eyes. And now finally, to your point, we're seeing the fairy tale ending. We hope she's getting her ending, her happily ever after. So I couldn't agree more. I think she's a special case because she's beyond, I'm not sure if there's anybody else I could think of that is like that, unless we're talking like a Beyonce, we're talking like a Rihanna. But I would even argue it's I don't know. I think she's on a different level because we saw Dua Lipa get married recently as well
I
too.
think
She went the opposite route.
I love Dua Lipa, and I actually am a huge fan of her husband. I've seen a few of his movies,
Yep.
and he has kind of like the cute mousy boy look that I like. But I wasn't invested in her wedding at all. I was just like,
Right.
oh,
But
she got married. Congrats, I guess.
congrats, I guess. Yeah, I had the same feeling. Like, I was more interested in the idea that she went to City Hall for the first one and they did this quickie wedding. I thought that was really cool, down to earth, cool. And then she did the big Italian thing. But yeah, the frenzy wasn't the same around her wedding. And I kind of thought about this with respect to Taylor. Like, if this is, I think of Rihanna. Like, if someone told me Rihanna was to get married or got married, I'd probably be like, isn't she already married? Like, I think of her already with ASAP. Like, I think, aren't her and Rocky married? But oh, they're not married. So it's something about, yeah, Taylor's journey as a person. We've watched her struggle, and it's watching that journey. I think that's what makes it so much more personal and more, in a way, you said earlier, we kind of see hope. We can aspire to, people getting their happy ending when we see Taylor. She's like the poster child, I think, for single girls who find their prince, right?
I think so. And I think she validates both stories. Like, she validates the fairy tale
Yes.
ending, but she also validates the struggle. And I think that is what, because I don't know, I'm a big Rihanna fan as well, as you mentioned, and you mentioned a few other artists that I'm fans of all of theirs. And I don't know that I've seen their relationship struggles be as public as hers. I think her relationship struggles because she pours her relationship struggles into her art specifically, and you kind of know which songs are about Joe Alwyn and which songs are about,
Yeah.
like, oh, that's a Jake Gyllenhaal story song, right? So you kind of, and also, I just think it validates the struggle because modern dating has been a dumpster fire for a lot of women. I've struggled with dating. I've done the apps before I met my husband. I know so many girlfriends who are like 10 out of 10 dimes, like beautiful, successful, smart. and they struggle with dating. And so it can be very invalidating when you're an independent, woman in this kind of like modern feminist era. You're making your own money, you're beautiful, you have friends, you have everything. You're like, why can't I find a guy? What's wrong with me? And then to see like someone like Taylor Swift also struggling for, like you said, over 2 decades, you're like, okay, it's not me. It's just the way of the world. And so it can be very validating on the positive and the negative side and make you feel, I think she makes you feel normal in that way. And, and especially, there was multiple times where we thought she was going to get married. Like, oh, is Joe Alwyn finally going to, propose to her? And he ended up not being the one. And so I think there is a almost, like you said, like, did they curate this? Because it's almost like a perfect storyline. If you were to write a movie, right? It's like, it's a payoff. It's an emotional payoff for us in a way to see someone struggle and then get, I guess, what's due. So it is a psychological and emotional payoff as a fan.
Yes, nailed it. Yes, someone getting what's due. I think that's a wonderful way of looking at it. And, I also think that, in speaking of looking at it, I feel like I haven't been to the wedding. Obviously, my invite I must have got lost in the mail.
Like,
but you know what I mean? It's busy. But I feel like, wouldn't you feel at this point, like if you didn't get an invite and you're in the Hollywood, sort of sphere, I think that would be worse for this wedding because it feels like she invited everyone between sport, movie, TV, like everybody was there. So we know Adam Sandler officiated this thing. We know, I know since reading everything that's supposed to have not been disclosed because people signed NDAs for this wedding, people. So it was tightly secured, but there's stuff leaking, of course. Celebrities are also putting the flex out there on Instagram and their socials.
Oh, this is what I wore. Yeah, I've seen a couple of dresses already, like selfie dresses in the mirror. Yeah.
yeah. It's one of those things. It's one of those things. Who do you think, is there one person, because again, you are in LA, so maybe it's fairly normal for you to also run into a lot of celebrities. I'm in Toronto, so I'm also in a place where it's very, very common actually to be walking in certain neighborhoods, especially during certain times of the year, like the Toronto International Film Festival, for example, coming up, where I'm sitting beside, Jacob Elordi at a restaurant. That's very, very possible. So, you're in LA, so you're in the business. Is there anybody though that if you were to go to the wedding, you feel like you would have a slight like fangirl moment if you were to be sat at their table?
I've actually thought of this not because of Taylor Swift, but just in general, because I do see a lot of celebrities in Los Angeles, and I'm rarely starstruck, I guess, because no, it's not like I see celebrities everywhere. That is a little bit of a stereotype, but you do see celebrities quite often. I'll say that. And so I haven't really been starstruck by anyone. Mostly because people are usually kind of like running their errands. Like before he passed away, I saw James Van Der Beek at like Target. He was just like running errands and things like that. And so it's just really common. And then also sometimes you see celebrities and your brain doesn't, or my brain does, I don't want to project for everyone, but my brain does a weird thing where I can't necessarily place them. I'm like, is this someone I just know and I can't remember their, because someone looks different when they're on the red carpet than when, they have on sweats and they're like at, like I said, Target. And so I thought about this question quite a bit, is the point that I've made. And I think really the only people that I would really, really be starstruck by is Mariah Carey. I'm a huge, huge Mariah Carey fan. I've been a Mariah Carey fan forever. I actually went to see her on her Christmas tour and paid insane amounts for seats. And I would never, ever, ever pay an insane amount for a seat. I'm like a $30 a ticket girl, like nosebleed. But I paid for orchestra floor seats from Mariah Carey. So I think Mariah Carey, I would totally be starstruck. And I don't know if she was there. She probably was. Because she's in New York, right? She has a house in New York. She's from New York. And then probably Dolly Parton.
That was going to be the one I was going to say.
Huge one for me. And then finally Britney. And those are the three. I'm not starstruck by any guys. Sorry, guy celebrities. And I'll tell you why, actually. This is the saddest thing in the entire world. Every time I've met a male celebrity, I've been sorely disappointed, like horribly disappointed. And what I mean by that is that they were either a jerk or some other negative thing that made me so sad. And I'm going to tell you a story, but I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to get sued for libel or slander. But I met one of my celebrities here in Los Angeles And he was so desperately trying to hit on women so much insanely younger than him and use a celebrity for that purpose that he felt yucky and predatory. And so I've seen kind of that happen a lot with the male celebrities I've met, which made me really sad in my heart.
Ooh,
And every time I meet a female celebrity, they're always like bubbly and sweet and like just like down to earth. So um I haven't been as starstruck with
interesting.
male celebrities because every time I've met them, they've always been kind of yucky and it makes me sad.
Oh, that's so. I hate to hear that. I hate to hear
Yeah.
it. I've heard this before too in a recent conversation. Of course, this is an entertainment reporter, so they come across celebrities frequently. I also used to work in television. I started in television, and I've met a lot of people, so I don't really get starstruck either. But I've found that you hit the one that I was like, yeah, Dolly Parton would be one that I would feel like, oh, this is an icon. This is a living
Yeah, she's an
legend.
icon.
So,
She has a giant heart, and I've heard so many positive things about her.
yeah,
Sorry, you just made me
yeah.
think of one more. Oprah. I would be starstruck by Oprah.
That that's the other one, right? I think for me, it's like that's the Mount Rushmore for me. It's like if you can meet somebody, have a 5 minute even conversation with them. Oprah would be intense because at a certain point, I think she'd be interviewing you. I don't even think I'd be conversing so much as answering. Like she would just dive into your soul. But I'd love to be in her vicinity just to feel her gravitas, like to have a conversation. Cause I feel like she'd be somebody that would be obviously so wicked at it, but also I feel like she's a real person. Like I feel she'd relate to you in a
Yeah,
really authentic way,
she seems very down to earth, and I think
Yeah.
Dolly Parton seems very down to earth as well.
Same. And I really respect her, just the way that well, I mean, her whole career, but as a woman and thinking about who she is in terms of Dolly Parton today is one thing, but Dolly Parton, when as an artist and everything she stands for, believes for, speaks to across like decades, she's pretty radical. Like I think,
She's like
you
amazing.
know,
I don't know if you've heard any of her stories in the early country days and how cruel I think some of the country male musicians were to her.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. That's why I think she's a pioneer. Like
yeah.
it just in every respect, in every way, like the respect she has in the industry, that's not something like across the board. It's not something that's random. I've never really heard anyone say anything negative about her. I've heard a consistent story about her and how amazing she is. And I think that speaks to something that she's got some major aura around her. But yeah, I think that would be an interesting thing to be even a fly on the wall or be a caterer at that wedding because
I would totally
I
be a
can't even
caterer at the
imagine.
wedding. I would pay to be a
Totally.
caterer at the wedding just to like, see what was happening and who was there.
Totally. I would just love to see because I find those are the things I think really are interesting about celebrities when they're in those spaces. When even though they can be performative because they obviously know there are cameras around, when you see something like I'll use the award shows as an example, when they're in those moments in between the segments and they are not necessarily thinking about the cameras being on them and they're just like schmoozing with each other. I find that type of stuff really interesting to see who's friends with who's talking to who. Like you see Leonardo DiCaprio's over here talking to, I don't know, Scorsese. Are they talking about a project that's going to come out now? Is there like something that's happening now that's brewing because they're all in the same room? Like that's the stuff that I find very interesting. Or who's the, like, the insecure one that's in the corner that doesn't really like to talk, who's like a little mousy, like the contrast. I think it's like we're seeing the contrast between who they are, they present themselves as, and who they are when they're amongst them, their own kind, if you will. I feel like that's like something that's very fascinating to see. But yeah, I have to agree with you. I feel as if in my experience too that maybe the women have presented, like they say, don't meet your heroes, right? I feel the women have often, for me, have been a delight to meet, and men can be hit or miss. But I do wonder, like to pick your brain about this. Do you feel there might be additional pressures? And as someone who also works in the industry yourself, as a woman, do you feel there might be additional pressures to show up a certain way because it's maybe stereotypes in society around women having to be more affable in general?
I think that there is a stereotype about women in business, and that's what the entertainment industry is. It's a business that um, are very, I don't know if counterproductive is the right word. They're very at odds with each other. I can't think of the right vocab word, but they're very at odds with each other because, and I think that's something, speaking of Dolly Parton, that she's talked about quite a bit, where she had to be a ruthless business person because of, she owns the rights to a lot of her songs, and that's not very common. As we know, Taylor had to re-record the rights to own the rights to her songs and things like that. And this was at a time, in the 70s and 80s where that was not a normal thing for her to do. And so she had the perfect cover. She would often play the character of a dumb blonde. She talks about it a lot, dumb blonde with big boobs, and act like she didn't really understand what was going on, and kind of play that to get her way. And then she had her lawyers and other things like that. But I think that there's definitely a stereotype that if you hold your boundaries, if you're a healthy person, if you know what you want, that you're a bitch or you're too aggressive. And I really don't like that, because that's a standard that's not held up to men. And if a man is very demanding, then he's, not a bitch or difficult to work with. He's just, knows his value as a business person. And so I think that is something that's very difficult. And I do think that people underestimate women in the industry, and I think that's a shame. But it can also be a superpower.
It can also be a superpower. Well, we're going to talk a bit more about the industry. But of course, before we do, we've been experiencing this wedding as if we went there ourselves, but we've really been taking it in through social media, right? So a lot of common experiences have been enhanced. Right. And in some ways, some people might argue some common experiences that we have, like weddings, have actually, in some ways, been made more challenging to execute because of social media. So, Rosie, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to comment on an experience that I'm going to toss out there. And you could tell me whether or not you think social media has ruined this. So, very simply, if you want to play along, if you're listening, if you're watching, okay, I'm going to throw out an experience, and then you're going to tell me whether you think social media has made it better, worse, or if it's a mixed bag. So let me give you one just to kind of get you warmed up. For example, dating.
I think social media has made things worse.
What makes you say that?
So me personally, I'm a very private person. And like I said, I am married now, but have a very public persona. So what that means is I have my stand-up clips online. I have a social media presence. I have, if you Google me, like 10 pages of Google will come up, and who knows what is on there, right? So if I were to be online dating, then someone could easily Google me and find out all sorts of things about me. They could watch this podcast. They could watch 100 other podcasts that I've been on and come to a conclusion about me that may not be exactly accurate. Obviously, I'm a very public persona, so that's a little bit different than the average person. But still, right? I've Googled people before. I've looked up people before on social media, and I found out all sorts of things about them. Now, whether it's true or not, who knows?
Yeah. Well, speaking of being a public persona, the next one I'm going to give you is going to definitely hit close to home. Comedy. Has social media made comedy better, worse, or is it a kind of a mixed bag?
I think it's a mixed bag. And I'll say that it's awesome because it's helping comics, especially comedians I know, friends of mine, kind of blow up from social media and reach an audience that they would never have been able to reach before. And it is negative because of that kind of quick lottery ticket access to fame possibility. It's flooding the market with bad comedy. And people that want to be comedians, people that are now blowing up from social media that maybe aren't talented comedians, but maybe they had a funny clip that went viral. And so, and I've personally seen this where people blow up from social media. They have maybe 1 million followers because of some clip that went viral. And then they come and tour at the local comedy club and they're not funny. They don't have more than 5 minutes of stand up. They just have 1 or 2 clips that went viral. And so it's elevating some people in a good way, and it's elevating some people in a bad way. So I would say complete mixed bag.
That's actually a perfect segue. I'm going to jump into, the content creation, because that's why you're here as well. I really wanted to pick your brain on this topic. Obviously, we speak about social media. It kind of seems like back in the day, if you wanted to build an audience, you really needed somebody in Hollywood to kind of give you a shot. I mean, that's what I think about when I think about somebody who wants to work in the business. What they would do is they'd go to Hollywood, right? Today, and you just mentioned this, especially with respect to comedy, it seems like anybody who has a phone, well, I mean, I'm sitting here right now with a microphone right now and a Wi-Fi connection. It seems like anybody who has like access to a phone can reach millions of people. And as someone who's built your career across TV, stand up, and digital platforms, you've experienced both worlds. So, how has the creator economy changed what it means to be an entertainer today?
Yeah, so again, mixed bag. So I think the creator economy is absolutely amazing. The positives, I'm going to say positives and the negatives. The positives are that anyone with a phone and a Wi-Fi connection can become a creator. And that's absolutely amazing because it's taking away the barriers to entry. Because before, like you said, there were gatekeepers, there were agents, there were managers, there were network executives saying, I don't like you for whatever reason, so I'm not going to pass you. You're not going to be able to move forward in Hollywood, no matter how talented you are. And so the creator economy allows people to bypass that and say, well, I'm really funny. I'm going to post my content online. And if there's an audience, then they will find me. And that's absolutely the best part of the creator economy. It's so amazing. It's so empowering. If you're sitting on your butt waiting for your agent or manager to call, you can go outside and shoot a comedy sketch with all of your best friends and, try to get it to go viral. That is awesome. It's so empowering and so wonderful. The negatives are, as I mentioned, with the question that you asked me, it's kind of flooding the market with trash. And so there are amazing people and the cream is rising to the crop, but I know insanely talented comedians who put out content all the time and it goes nowhere. And I also know people who are, I'm just going to call them internet randos, that are posting all sorts of clickbaity things and they're getting clicks and they're getting likes because they're using the algorithm. They're posting things that are outrageous. They're posting things that are blatantly false or very political because they're getting clicks and they're getting likes and they're getting reshares. And so on the one hand, it's extremely positive and empowering. And some cream is rising to the crop and that's some rising to the top. And that's amazing. And then it's also flooding the market with people who are saying, hey, if I talk about something really political or something really divisive and make an outrageous and crazy, thumbnail, I'm going to get a lot of likes and views. And so that's also happening. So unfortunately in life, as my husband says, the universe always wants equilibrium, right? There's a yin and yang. And so there's always a positive and always a negative to everything. And that's the positive of the creator economy. And that's also the negative.
Yeah, the duality, right? Well, then I guess if the market is, and I think I can all kind of see that there are so many creators out there and so many different types of niches. If it is so saturated, why do people continue to do this? Like, is it necessary now that every entertainer becomes a content creator?
It's so interesting that you asked me that question because I've actually, I don't want to say given up on my dream because that sounds terrible, but I've narrowed my dream to what I do best because of that. So there's content creators that I've seen before that I'm like, oh, that's what I wanted to do. But they're so good at it. I'm like, okay, they don't need another person doing this. Like there's niches that I've looked at, I'm really good at finance and a lot of my friends are like, you should give finance advice. You're so good at finance. But then I follow my rich BFF and she's like basically me, right? But like 20 times better at being me than me. I'm like, wow, she's actually like better at being me than me. And so I'm like, why am I going to create? I mean, I could, right? I could create a financial advice account, but she's so good at it. And she's also like an Asian female. I'm like, everyone would say I was copying her. So like, why try to be my rich BFF when my rich BFF already exists? Right. And so that actually took me away from that. But that was a good thing because then I focused on what my other strengths are, which is comedy and diversity and bringing, unique voices and stuff. So in a way, it can be very discouraging, but it can also help you find what your true strength is because I'm good at giving financial advice, but I'm not great at giving financial advice. And my rich BFF, she's great at giving financial advice, right? And there was a few other things that I thought about doing too, because I'm really into fashion. And one of my friends was like, you should do a fashion Instagram. And there's like 9,000 fashion Instagrams that are like way better than anything I could ever do in fashion Antoinette. So I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to do that because that's not my strength. So in a way, it is flooded, but then it makes you hyper focused on being uniquely who you are, because there's no one really that does Rosie Tran and what I'm doing, but there are 1,000 people that do kind of like a fashionista version, right? So, and I'm not talking down on these people. I'm saying that they're awesome. They're amazing. They're so amazing that I'm like, I don't need to go there. I don't need to touch that account.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like I feel like I could make the comparison of somebody who wants to do a movie podcast, right? And talk about movies. Of course you can do that. And there's so many of them. You can. I mean, I talk about movies on this channel, but the Ringers kind of got a good they got a good thing going with how they cover movies. So how are you going to enter that space and then occupy a part of it that's uniquely yours?
Exactly.
It's like uniquely yours. Like, why am I going to this person's content versus that person's content, right? So it has become really, it's an economy, as you know, keep saying creator economy. And an economy, you have options, you have, in a healthy one anyways, you have multiple options. So what I'm hearing you say, it does make sense. You would say it's a mixed bag, because there's obviously lots of opportunity now, because it's kind of democratized the access, right, to people, right, to hear our voices heard. But then at the same time, it's also opened it up to everybody. So now you have to be much more aware of your proposition, like your value that you're going to add
exactly
to the
conversation.
Market, right?
But it's also like really scary, because there's things that I thought only I was into, and then you'll find an account and there's like 200,000 followers, and you're like, okay, I'm not like unique at all. All right.
Yeah, yeah. I always find it so funny as well too. Like, I'll be like, how many followers does this dog have? This dog has like 400,000 followers. What are they doing? And then I'll be like looking at it like, how?
It's funny that was another thing, because like I'm a crazy dog lady, and I'm always thinking of this crazy like dog content, and I'm like, and like making my dog, before social media, I would make my doggies like do stuff and everything. And now you see all this dog content, you're like, oh my God, there's so many other crazy dog people who think about this crazy dog stuff other than me. And it just makes you feel like comforted in a way, because you're like, oh, okay, there's other people out there like me. But then you're also like, okay, there's like 500 million other people like me. Like, I'm not original at all. And it's weird. It just shows how similar we are, but also different. It's very interesting.
It is really interesting. And it's becoming even more so, because obviously people are very aware now that content creation, and I would say internet culture, is certainly having a moment. So I have to bring up the fact that, people are really fascinated by another story that's really been just sort of lingering in the headlines recently around the movie Backrooms and the movie Obsession, right? So if anyone hasn't seen these two movies, these are two movies that I believe both directors, creators, writers are under the age of 30. So both are in their early 20s, and were both content creators. So one person got their start on YouTube, right? I believe Kane Parsons started on YouTube before he got the Backrooms feature out. And then likewise, so and I've forgotten his name already. It'll be scrolling on the screen here in any moment. But the creator of Obsessions, I just saw the movie as well too.
I just saw it too, yeah.
I just saw the movie. And again, like, this is someone as well that I believe got his start on social media. So to your earlier point about how this is also giving people exposure they probably wouldn't have had before, it's an interesting time to ask ourselves where the industry is headed. And because of the success of these two movies, right, that began as internet phenomenons and then became like legit box office successes, what do you think this means for Hollywood's new farming system? Do you think that this is a sign that Hollywood is now looking to creators online to drive the culture? Or are the creators, are they looking at Hollywood signals to figure out where they fit in?
So I would say that the inmates are now running the insane asylum.
Okay.
And I would say that every single time there's a big shift, the control and the power shifts. So what I mean by that is, we had talkies, and those were, we had silent films, and then the talkies came, and people said, oh, well, talkies are going to completely, obliterate the silent film. And that did happen, but it also shifted, right? It didn't actually ruin anything. It just shifted. And so then the big film industry and the studio industry, and then television happened, and people were like, television is going to completely ruin the movie industry. And in fact, what it did was it amplified the movie industry. People could watch movies on TV. People could go to the theater to watch movies. It just changed the formatting, right? Just like DVDs, just like streaming. Oh, Netflix, no one's going to go to the movies anymore. I mean, movies have seen a huge decline, but it's just shifted. And so anytime there's a new radical technology or radical change in industry, it just shifts things. And I think that the creator economy is one of the biggest shifts in that industry. And we see that, we've seen the huge issues happening in traditional Hollywood. There a big strike happened, and then now the industry is moving out of Los Angeles, and 20% of the industry has moved to Tennessee and moved to Canada. As you know, there's a lot of production in Canada, has moved to Lithuania, has moved to Texas. So all it does is it just moves the puzzle pieces around. And I think that I was joking and saying the inmates are running the asylum. I think the creators are the inmates, and we're kind of running Hollywood in a way, because Hollywood can no longer ignore the creator. And I think before there was such a huge power dynamic with the studios and big Hollywood and Warner Brothers and things like that. Obsession made more movie money than the recent Star Wars. So, I mean, that is not a small amount of money, and that is a huge amount of power shift for someone who basically was an independent screenwriter, an independent director, and it was a small, low-budget horror film that has out eclipsed a major piece of intellectual property. I mean, that's insane. So I think that what I mean by my comment, by my joke, is that creators now hold the power has shifted, and now it's not completely owned and controlled by the creators, but it has shifted significantly towards creators. So if you are a creator and you create some type of screenplay or project or intellectual property that is proven that it can generate some type of revenue or likes or follows, then you have Hollywood by the balls, I think, more than reverse. Before, you were just an actor, you had no control. You were just a writer, you had no control. Even as a director, you had no control. You were at the behest of the studios. But if you can create some type of intellectual property that came from your mind that has some type of following, you now have that power. And so I think it's an amazing, amazing time to be a content creator. And it's extremely powerful because, back in the day, you could be some waiter at some Applebee's or Outback Steakhouse and say, oh, I'm going to make it in Hollywood. And, people would say, oh, good luck. And you might be completely delusional. But now you being completely delusional is a superpower because you actually have the tools to make that delusion come true. And the American dream, the Hollywood dream, I think is actually, people are saying, oh, it's dead. I think it's more vibrant than ever because of that democratization, that people, if you can create and somehow get that message out there, get your voice out there, then you can become more powerful than the studios. And that was proven by the movie Obsession. This indie film has grossed more than a Star Wars film. That's absolutely insane.
It really is. It continues to shock me. And actually, the day that I went to go see Backrooms, I was at a library. Whole other topic of conversation, support our public libraries. But there were a group of, I'll call them youngsters, if you will. They're clearly younger. Like, if I'm looking at them to my naked eye, the way they're talking, the way that they're dressed, I'm like, okay, I'm putting them at around 18, 19. They started talking about Backrooms. And so, of course, I had to go and I had to talk to them. So I actually stuck my nose into the circle. There was about 5 or 6 of them. It looked like a Benetton ad. It was actually remarkably diverse. I'm like, wow, this is like
there's an Asian kid,
yeah, it was literally that. An Asian kid. There was a Russian kid. It was really beautiful. And I found out why. They actually all go to kind of like a performing arts school.
Okay.
So it was like a fame situation playing itself out in front of me. And I asked them about the topic we've been talking about. Like, what are your thoughts on what's going on right now with Backrooms and Obsession? And why do you think it's doing so well? They also confirmed for me, all of them 17, a couple of 18-year-olds as well. And they said, one of them wants to be a director. And he said, I'm studying film. And he's like, yeah, we're sick of seeing the same people.
Yes. Yes.
In the Hollywood machine.
Yes.
We don't want to see these people anymore. We want people to tell stories that reflect us. Kind of a FUBU situation. It's for us, by us. We want to give people who are creators, I want to give, this is, straight out of, the demographics mouth. Like, we want to give people our money who are actually telling stories that we want to see. And so I thought, okay, this is not a trend. I think this is
No.
something that, as you said, the industry is shifting, and so
Thank you
I'm
for
not
saying
surprised to hear
that.
what you're saying at
No,
all.
thank you for saying
Yeah,
that because that resonates with me and with so many people that I know. Um, and I don't want to talk about my show too much, but it's a related story if you don't mind.
please,
Okay, yeah.
please.
So one of the reasons that I started my show on Tubi and Amazon, Rosie Tran Presents, is because I had pitched a sexy all girls comedy tour, and a major comedy chain in America. The manager had sent me a not a nasty, but a very unpleasant email saying, "Rosie, I love you, you're hilarious, but nobody wants to see funny hot women." And he said that's just a fact.
Wow.
And I was so disheartened by that. And I had actually gone on a funny hot girls tour, and two of my friends had gone on a tour um, together as well. And every show that they did was sold out. And the show that we just did one show was in Colorado. It was very well received. And people came up to us, men, women, all sexes, genders, ethnicities, ages, and said, "Oh my God, you guys need to do this girl tour because we want to see more. We're sick of seeing white men only at the comedy club, and we want to hear diverse voices." So this was coming from, I mean, there's a stereotype that, white men only want to watch white men, and that's not true. It's not true. And this manager had told me, and said nobody wants to see funny hot women. I'm sorry, that's a fact. And that wasn't a fact because when I had gone on the road with my tour, everyone had told us you need to do this. And so that became episode 3 and 4 of my show, Wicked Women of Comedy. But it just it could not have been further from the truth what the gatekeeper was telling me versus what reality and the audience was telling me. So I think that's what those kids at the library were trying to say. They're like, this is what we want. We're tired of seeing the same old thing over and over and over again. And for some reason, the Hollywood comedy machine, and again, I'm not bashing white men. I have so many white male friends in comedy. My husband is a white male. I love white men, but it's like nobody wants to hear the same white man tell his joke over and over and over again in a different body like 20 times. People want to hear now. That doesn't mean people want to hear, like you said, United Benetton, but people want to hear some diversity. They want to hear different perspectives. They want to hear different stories, not the same thing over and over again. Nobody wants to watch the 700th superhero movie. They just don't want to. I mean, I'm tired. Every single time I see a superhero trailer, I'm like, didn't I see this movie already? Like, I love Scarlett Johansson, but I'm like tired. You just get tired. You want to see something different.
You know what, Rosie? Even more so than what you said earlier, I don't even think the Swifties are going to come for you. The Marvel fans are going to come for you for that statement. It's so funny. They're going to come for you for that. But I do agree with you. And actually, ironically, there's a lot of things that you said that relate to some of the things I've spoken about recently with Gus. So, I did a show shortly after Catherine O'Hara's passing with a local comedian here. She spoke about this as well as being a woman, touring, doing comedy, that she was of the point of view that women can either be, you can't have hot, funny, like I can be the hot girl, hot kind of ditzy girl, or I can be funny and like benign. Those are the two lanes. So I can't believe what you just said. Someone told you, recently, right? This is not.
This was a few
like
years ago. This was before I had done my show, but he had basically said, and it was a comedy chain. Again, I don't want to get super libel or slander, so I'm not going to say which chain, but it's a comedy chain I had worked for many years. He said, "Rosie, I love you. You're hilarious." He goes, "Nobody wants to see funny hot women. I'm sorry, that's just a fact." And I was like floored because of my experience that's exactly what people wanted to see. I had people come up to me. I had men come up to me with, I mean, a little bit passive aggressive compliment, but they would say, "Oh, I normally don't think funny hot girls are funny, but you guys were great." So it's kind of a backhanded compliment. But the point is, he probably normally doesn't think funny hot women are funny because he hasn't seen them, right? So that's another thing too, is he hasn't been exposed to it because for some reason these weird gatekeepers are obsessed with like telling us no. And I think it's a power thing. I think it's a status quo thing. I'm not like a big, oh, it's a patriarchy, but I think it is a patriarchal thing because this talent coordinator manager happened to be a white male. And I think there's a feeling of if I give you some pie, I'm going to have less pie. And I think that's the silliest thing in the world. Everyone can have their pie. Everyone can bake a pie. I happen to be, maybe apple pie is the favorite thing. I happen to be a peach pie. Some people like peach pie, So saying that people can have peach pie doesn't take away from apple pie. And I think some of these people
Right.
genuinely feel like if you offer someone peach pie, they're not going to be able to sell apple pie anymore. And that's just the silliest thing in the entire world.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just bizarre to me. I mean, I think about especially content creators with respect to, and you said this early on in our conversation, just kind of eliminating those barriers for people that maybe encounter the people that don't want to see hot, funny women or think that insert this type of comedy, this type of creator here. I think of Issa Rae, for example, as one of the most notable in my mind right now, starting off with her internet series. And then, of course, we know what she became, what she did with Insecure. So it's just funny that, yeah, there's just so many people that are still, for whatever reason, yeah, just a feeling that there's no market for it. It's like, no, the market will.
I mean,
the market will show you.
Look at Crazy Rich Asians. Look at
yeah.
They were like, oh, no one wants to see this Asian leads. It's one of the top grossing films, of that year. And the same thing with, the Netflix show, All the Boys I've Loved Before, right? She fought them. They didn't want an Asian lead. They said, no one's going to watch this movie with an Asian lead. She needs to be white. And she said the whole purpose of my graphic novel or my teen novel, young adult novel, YA novel, was that she was half Korean. And the creator fought Netflix for that. And they finally caved in. And it was one of the top movie series on Netflix. So this idea that nobody wants to see we've heard this all before. Nobody wants to see an Asian lead. Nobody wants to see a Black lead. Nobody wants to see a Latino lead. Who is nobody? You haven't put it out there yet. So who is these nobodies, And that's absolutely not true. And this idea that people want to see people that look like them, otherwise they can't, watch the movie is ridiculous. To say, oh, well, a white man only wants to watch a white man. A white man he cannot watch a Black woman. I mean, that's silly. A white man can look at a Black woman and enjoy her energy and laugh and enjoy. A white man can look at an Asian woman and an Asian woman can look at a Black woman. Like, we're not that stupid and simplistic that, if I'm an Asian woman and I don't see another Asian woman, I'm going to suddenly fall into a coma. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And that's the same weird gatekeeping that we've heard in the past. I don't know if you know the story about, All the Boys I've Loved Before, but she fought Netflix. They absolutely did not want an Asian lead in that movie series. And they said, no one is going to watch it. And sure enough, they kept her, Asian lead, and it was one of the top movies. So it's just, I don't know why they have this idea, this blind idea that nobody wants to see this certain type of person on the screen. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I mean, we've talked about all the shifts in the industry, but ultimately at the end of the day, a lot of people may say like, hey, this is something I really want to do. But I'm listening to this conversation. I know I'd love to be a creator, but like, where do I even begin? So for someone who is thinking about building an audience today, what's one piece of advice that you would give them about trying to get into the creator economy?
So I'm going to give them two pieces of advice because one is practical. The other one is something that held me back for many, many, many years. So the first thing I would tell them to do is just to start creating. And the reason I say that is because if you wait until you have your perfect niche, if you wait until you have your perfect thing, if you wait until you're going to always be waiting. So once you create, that's where you find the mistakes. So that's when you say, oh, that video didn't work, but that one did. Oh, okay, this was really funny, but this wasn't. So you just have to fail spectacularly and take action. And taking action is more important than the content. And I've seen people go viral with some pretty like mediocre content. So I would say just create and build your audience. And the second thing I will say is ignore the haters. And what I mean by that is, I started in the industry many years ago, like 20 plus years ago. And this is before we had the language of a troll. This is before we had the language of the internet, incel and the hater. And so I took those comments very, very personal. And I know people that still take these comments very, very personal. And the sad truth of the world is there's a lot of amazing people out there, but there's also a lot of broken people out there. And people will project and leave negative comments. And that's just part of the deal. And so don't look at the comments and ignore, block, and delete. And that's something that took me way too long to understand. It's something that held me back tremendously in my career for many, many years because I took many of those comments personally. And I still do a little bit. I'm very sensitive. And it just held me back so much. So I would say post as much as you can and delete and ignore the trolls and just know it's so hard, but just know it's not personal. And some of them maybe mentally ill. I mean, I just had a guy post a comment on one of my videos. He said, "Go back to your country." I'm like, I'm from America. where would I go back to? I was born here. I'm from here. So people will just leave just insane comments. I think he called me like a communist or something. He was like, red. He's like,
that's
red
old school.
China. He's like, red China, go back to your country. I'm like, first of all, I'm not even Chinese. Second of all, I am not a communist. Like what? But and nothing about my content was communist either. It was a video of me like making silly faces. So it's like really bizarre that he put that. But there's a lot of broken people out there, and they're angry and they're unhappy, and some of them may be even jealous that you're creating content, even if your content isn't great. They may be jealous because they may want to be a content creator and too scared to do it. So the first thing I would say is create. Don't worry about it. Don't overanalyze it. Don't, criticize yourself too much, because you're probably your own worst critic, because we all are. And number 2, ignore the haters, delete, block, ignore. And it's so much easier said than done. But that's my 2 advices.
Great piece of advice. Great piece of advice. We love a twofer here. We love a twofer. So thank you. That's right. 2 for 1. Look at this. I mean, that's worth a subscribe right there. So if you haven't even done that yet, hey, you know what to do. Rosie Tran, thank you so much, because I do think that's great advice. You're so right. I think just starting is often the first barrier of entry. Is just do it. And I think so many creators, as you've mentioned, will also really appreciate, I know myself, I also appreciate what you're saying about just ignore the haters, and you have to sort of, you develop a little bit of tougher skin in a sense, right? Because the industry as well is not for the faint of heart. And I think that there's going to be people that are going to comment on you. Even when you're successful, wildly successful, you're going to have more people commenting. So I really appreciate the advice that you've given. That's very, very real. And for people who are interested in seeing more of your content, what are you up to next, and where can they find you?
Yes, I would love to get a season 2 of my show, Rosie Tran Presents. So I need people to watch, and follow it. So we're on Tubi and we're on Amazon Prime, and leave a positive comment. Watch an episode. On Tubi, you can watch it for free with ads, and on Amazon Prime, it's a pay for. But watch it. If you love it, then leave a comment, or a positive comment, or a review. If you hate it, that's fine. Leave a comment as well. It helps the algorithm. Tell me how much you hate it, and leave your hater comments. And if you love it and you want to support a woman of color and someone supporting diverse voices for minorities and people that are underrepresented, then please share it, and share it with your friends. A lot of people I know have genuinely told me that they love the show, so I hope it's a good show. And I'm bringing and the point of the show is to bring diverse voices, because I kind of got sick of the same thing in the comedy scene. So I have people of all ethnicities, all genders, and it's not a DEI show, as in I'm not just lifting people up because they're minorities. These are actually the funniest people I know, and they're hilarious. So
yeah, hey, I can't wait to see it myself, and I hope that others are going to go check it out as well too. Thank you so much for sharing, your wisdom about the creator economy with us today, because I know you've definitely inspired at least one person to at least hit record, at least try it. And I hope so. And I hope you'll also come back, Rosie, at some time. I'd love to have another chat with you at some point, check in and see what you're doing. And also just come back and chat. We'll check in. We'll do another culture check and see what's happening in the headlines and discuss.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. And thank you for those who are listening and for those who are watching. And of course, as I said, if you enjoyed this conversation, please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. And until next time, alchemists, stay curious.